verse in the whole Bible. It says, happy is the one that takes the infants of Babel and of Edom and smashes them on the rock.
And therefore, Chazal tell us in the Gemara Megillah that the relationship between Rome and Klal Yisrael is that Kishazeh Kam Zenoifel. That if somebody were to say Jerusalem is built and Caesarea is built, don't believe them. If anybody says they both lay in ruins, don't believe them. It's either one or the other. Either the Jewish people rule or the Romans rule. Because it's one melucha, it's one power. Never shall they both rule the world. Edom, Rome. Who is Rome today? Italy. The United States is considered the spiritual heir of Rome. Western culture is the spiritual heir of Edom of Rome.
Yosef, who became Edom, who became the Roman Empire, which metamorphosed into the Christian Empire, which became Christian civilization, which is now represented by the United States of America, will suffer a crushing, humiliating defeat.
Edom and Asa was called Edom, and his descendants were known as the nation of Edom. According to Chazal, Edom is the father of Rome, what would later become the Roman Empire.
All the mountains are going to be full of blood, of the corpses of Edom, because of the vengeance that Hashem is going to take from them.
It all started, of course, with Esav. Esav became Edom, which is a nation. Edom became Rome. The Torah says Esav is Edom. The Gemara says, the Talmud says, that Edom is Rome, is Uroimi. So Esav today is really Western civilization.
It's the implacable enemy of the Jews. It's a morphing kingdom. It's unlike the previous kingdoms. It begins as Rome, and then it morphs, becomes Christian in the 4th century, and then it divides and divides and divides.
So who's Edom? Edom includes most of Europe. It includes the United States of America. It's the Roman Empire that was never destroyed. But for those who don't understand that Italy is the seat of the Roman Empire of Edom, even though Edom is scattered, many other nations today that speak Latin languages that have something of the Roman Empire, including America. They are first. So Edom is everywhere. The United States of America is also part of Edom.
Who becomes the children of Esav? All of a sudden, it shifts now. And we talk about Galut Edom as who? As Rome, and eventually Western civilization.
The Edomites are the descendants of Edom, who is also known as Esau, Jacob's evil twin. Our tradition tells us that the Edomites are the ancestors of the Romans, and indeed of all Europeans and the entire Christian world.
Rome is the last empire of the 4 empires that subjugated the Jewish people. Edom, Rome is the worst of all. And Edom is going to be destroyed. We have entire books in Tanakh devoted to the destruction of Edom. It's finished, it's gone, no more.
The West is Rome. According to the simple meaning, Europe and America are really one entity. But we know one thing, right? That when it comes to the classic Rome, which is Europe, they're finished.
So obviously, building up the greatness, power, and unrivaled importance of America is not the role Donald Trump was chosen for. So what is his cosmic role? This video is getting long, so I'm going to be very brief and elaborate on this in the following video. America is the last manifestation of the Roman Empire, the empire which outlasted every other in its power and duration. The metaphysical progeny of Esau, who is Edom, who is Rome, who is Christian civilization, who is Western civilization, now led by the United States of America. The future of this empire is prophesied throughout the 24 books of the Jewish Bible. When considering the sheer number of prophecies in the Bible regarding the future destiny of nations, the number one spot goes, of course, to the Jewish people who, under King Mashiach, will attain the greatest heights of perfection and lead the entire world to serve God in unison. This is essentially the underlying theme of the entire Hebrew Bible. However, the number 2 spot, in terms of volume, concerns the ultimate destiny of Esav/Edom/Rome/Western civilization. And these prophecies are not pretty. They predict the utter destruction and desolation of Rome. I'm going to share just a couple of them with you, and in brief. We'll preface with the one that's in this past week's Haftorah, for the Torah portion of Bo, which we read in synagogues all over the world. It is taken from Jeremiah chapter 46 at the very end. As for you, my servant Jacob, don't be afraid, don't be frightened, Israel, for I will save you from afar and you children from the land of their exile. Jacob will enjoy peace and quiet, and no one will trouble him. Don't be afraid, my servant Jacob, says God, for I am with you. I will destroy all the nations among whom I have exiled you, but I will not destroy you. There's an entire book of the Bible devoted to the destruction of Edom, the book of Obadiah, a vision of Obadiah. This is what God the Lord said concerning Edom. You are thoroughly despised, you who make the mountains your lofty abode and say to yourself, who can bring me down? Even if you raise your nest as high as the eagles, even if you establish it among the stars, I will bring you down from there, declares God. On that day, declares God, I will surely make the wise men disappear from Edom, and understanding from Mount Esau. Your warriors will be broken, so that the slaughter will wipe out every last man. For God's day against the nations is near. What you did will be done to you. You will be punished in kind for your deeds. The house of Jacob will be fire, the house of Joseph a flame, and the house of Esau will be straw. They will set them alight and consume them. There will be no survivors from the house of Esau, for God has spoken.
Shalom Yasharallah, it's your brother Darash Shamat. I'm affiliate of the GMS Boise, Idaho camp, and I'm back with another lesson. Before we jump into this, I want to say Kal Halayim La, Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Ba'ashim, Kakodash, and double honors to the elders and apostles at Great Millstone for bringing out this truth, and shalom to the hopeful elect. which includes 144,000 rest of the elect out there scattered around the world, including those speckled bird Israelites who may look like the other nations but are not. And this is not a black thing. You are who you are according to the seed of your fathers. And as we know from the scriptures, the Israelites were scattered all throughout this world. They mingled with these nations and they look like these nations. Now, this word goes out to the 12 tribes scattered abroad because the scriptures were only written unto the nation of Israel. So the title of this one, they deceived the whole world. So I put together a few clips. The first one basically is a rabbi. Basically he's quoting Psalms 137. Okay. But what gets me about this is he's quoting his own punishment, the punishment of his people that's coming upon them. Okay. Because they did something similar to us in the past. All right. And I made a video about it on a while back, but I'll address it a little bit. That's going to be, the recompense on them. Okay. And so what these clips made me think about was the delusion that these Amalekites have, that there's two sets of so-called pale people or so-called white people, as they say. Okay? There was only one set of pale people that were created, and they all descend from Esau. Okay? As the predominant group. All right? Now, we do understand that you are who you are through the seed of your father. So now, people have, mingled, and you have Israelites that have, pale skin. You have other nations that have pale skin. But the predominant portion of the pale people are the Edomites, okay? And, back in the day, that's who the pale people were, all right? The Edomites, all right? So there was only one nation of pale people, okay, as a whole, all right? So it's not that, just America is the Edomites, and just Europe is the Edomites, and those Amalekites over there in the Holy Land, they are a totally different group and all that. No, they're all one people. But it's interesting how they just point the finger at each other. A kingdom divided against itself cannot stand. Okay, and you're watching their division, growing worldwide. All right? So these people, that anointed cherub that covered Esau, Edom, he put that covering cast over all people, okay, and deceived them. All right, he deceived himself and his own people because he actually believes his lies. All right, now he's taught us history from a standpoint that they are who they say they are, but we know that's a lie. We know that they're the Edomites. And that's what we're going to go into just a little bit, okay? There aren't two sets of white people. It's just the Edomites, okay? So let's just read Psalms 137 since he brought it up. In verse 7 it says, "Remember, O Yahweh, the children of Edom in the day of Jerusalem," when the Babylonians were coming in, "who said, raise it, raise it." Okay, so they wanted it to be totally destroyed. Tear it down, even to the foundation thereof. O daughter of Babylon, who are to be destroyed. And the daughter of Babylon is America. Okay, who are to be destroyed, because this place is destined for destruction. It's in prophecy. It's set in stone. It has to happen. Happy shall he be that rewarded thee as thou hast served us. And what is this going into? Well, the Edomites did all kind of atrocities to us. Okay? And now those atrocities had to get done back to them. Okay? In a righteous manner, though. All right? And it says, happy shall he be that taketh and dasheth thy little ones against the stones. And so what that first rabbi was going into, he was saying, hey, we're going to do that to these so-called Edomites over here in America and in Europe, okay? modern Christianity, so to say. Because that's how they say, like, oh yeah, Catholicism was the secession of Rome, and spiritually, that's Edom. Man, the Edomites are a bloodline, okay? Start coming with all that nonsense, all right? So, he's trying to put his judgment on half of his people, okay? Because they're divided against themselves. They don't really know, who they are. But we could look at some history and actually see who did this and who deserves, the recompense for it. So let's get it. This is the book 500 Nations, an illustrated history of North American Indians. So I've used this book before. Well, I've used a clip of this book before by someone else, so I had to get the book to look into it. Okay, so let's go. It's about page 1. Let's look at page 113, okay, or 112. It's chapter 3, Clash of Cultures. And you see those people in those boats, they're dark-skinned, they're swarthy people, okay? And look at their hair, the hair of Negroes. And this is talking about North America, okay? Now, this page should be familiar for those who've seen the previous video on this. And it reads, the Indians and Columbus. The Spaniards made bets as to who would slit a man in two or cut off his head at one blow. Or they opened up his bowels. They tore the babies from their mother's breast by their feet and dashed their heads against the rocks. They spitted the bodies of other babes, together with their mothers, and all who were before them on their swords. They hanged Indians, and by 13s in honor and reverence for our Redeemer and the 12 apostles, they put wood underneath with fire. They burned the Indians alive. All saw the above things. All these did my own eyes witness. Okay, so that's a quote from that person right there. So these Edomites, they did these things to us. And so that recompense, is going to have to come on to them. Okay? But the mystery still lies. Who are these two sets of white people? Well, there is no two sets of white people. They're one people. They're just a nation divided against itself that cannot stand. So all these atrocities that they did to us is going to be done unto them, as we just read in Psalm chapter 137. All right? So let's get back into the scripture and investigate this some more. So this is Revelation chapter 21 and verse 1. It says, and I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. Now that bottomless pit is over there in Europe, okay? And he laid hold on the dragon, okay? Now that dragon is representing Esau, Edom, that old serpent, okay? Which again is representing Esau, Edom. Okay, because that's the same spirit that went to Eve. Okay, it's the same spirit that was in Cain. Okay, which is the same spirit that's in these Edomites. All right, which is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, which we know as what? The Dark Ages. Okay. So they were up in the Caucasus Mountains during that time. All right? Job talks about it. All right? Well, let's get verse 3 before we move on. And cast him into the bottomless pit in Europe. Okay? That's when he was up there in the Caucasus Mountains. shut him up and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more. Okay? So he is a deceiver. He couldn't deceive the nations during that time. All right, but here we go. We all know the Dark Ages ended. And it says, till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled, and after that he must be loosed a little season. All right? So he was loosed. He went out to deceive the nations. And guess what? He went into perdition. Okay, so on his way to destruction. That's all he does, steal, kill, and destroy. Okay? That's the history, that you need to know. All right? And speaking about these Edomites, okay, they were the ones that were caught up, in that state of being a troglodyte, in the caveman. They were the ones in the cave. And there was only one set of pale people, during that time. Which we're going to get to the evidence of that. All right? So let's go to Job chapter 30. Okay? Building the case on Esau, Edom. It's Job chapter 30 and verse 1, and it says, but now they that are younger than I have me in derision, whose fathers I would have disdained to have set with the dogs of my flocks. Okay, so this is, Job. He's, in his distressed state to the stuff that he's going through. Okay, and, there's duality in this. All right, talking about, the lowly, wicked people that are around him. Okay, who are now, kind of like, oh, we're in a better state than you right now. Okay, and then comparing it now to, like the Edomites, all right? Because they also fit this, all right? You know what Edomites do to dogs? You wouldn't want them around your dogs, all right? And look how they have us in derision right now, okay? And they are base men. So if we go look at this word right here for younger, it says little, insignificant, young, and that's the Edomites. The lowest of the low. Yea, whitherto might the strength of their hands profit me, in whom old age was perished. So there are no benefit to us. Okay? These Edomites, they're nothing. For want and famine they were solitary, fleeing into the wilderness in former time, desolate and waste. Okay? Now, this would coincide with what we just read in Revelation chapter 20 about them, being locked up in the Caucasus Mountains, okay, in that lower state, who cut up mallows by the bushes and juniper roots for their meat. They were like animals. They were driven forth from among men. They cried after them as after a thief, all right? So imagine them like howling and stuff. To dwell in the clefts of the valleys, in caves of the earth and in the rocks. Well, they call themselves Caucasians. They're telling on themselves. Okay, you could go look at pictures and see. All right? But they try to paint it off as if that stuff happened thousands of years ago. Okay, many thousands of years ago, like, the caveman was some prehistoric thing. Nah, that was recent history, man. That was the Dark Ages. It says, among the bushes they brayed, donkeys bray. Okay? Under the nettles they were gathered together. They were children of fools. Okay? Yea, children of base men. They are viler than the earth. Okay? Nobody's more profane than Esau, the children of fools. All right? They gave up their birthright. They gave up the blessing. Okay? You know it was never for them. Yea, children of base men, the lowest possible people. But Yahweh Hashem Yahushua, he raises them up. He raised them up to do his bidding. All right? Now let's get Obadiah chapter 1 and verse 3. And it says, the pride of thy heart had deceived thee, thou that dwellest in the clefts of the rock. So now that he's lifted up, he's all puffed up with pride. Okay? Whose habitation is high, that said in his heart, who shall bring me down to the ground? Now, we already know how they going to get brought down. Okay, Yahweh Hashem Yahushua is going to take them down. Now, to put the pieces to the puzzle together, okay, that there couldn't be multiple nations of so-called white people, let's get Benjamin Franklin's letter and then go to the book of Genesis, okay, to put that understanding together, since you have this history here. All right? Now, this is called Observations Concerning the Increase of Mankind, 1751. Okay? Now, if you see down here, it says Franklin wrote the essay in 1751, speaking of Benjamin Franklin. Now we scroll down to paragraph 24, right here. All right, now I'm going to enlarge it. And it says, which leads me to add one remark, that the number of purely white people in the world is proportionally very small. Okay? Meaning the portion of Edomites is very small. Now look at this. All Africa is black or tawny. Okay? That's a darker complexion. Okay? Tawny is like a brown skin. A lighter brown, I would say. Asia, chiefly tawny. So all Africa and Asia, chiefly tawny. All right? Black, tawny, okay? And tawny. All right? So they're highly melanated people. America, exclusive of the newcomers. And who are the newcomers? These pale people are the newcomers. We already know the story about Christopher Columbus and all of that stuff. All right? We just looked at it in that book, 500 Nations, a little bit, what they did. All right? So that's the pale people. And it says, and in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion. So he's basically just said the whole world was dark-skinned. So how the hell we get two different groups, or even more than two if these Edomites could say it, all right? How do we get two groups of white people? We don't. They're the same people. They are Edomites. Now let's read that again. And in Europe, the Spaniards, Italians, French, Russians, and Swedes are generally of what we call a swarthy complexion, as are the Germans also. The Saxons only excepted, who with the English make the principal body of white people on the face of the earth. And that's what's at that time, okay? Because the Saxons were also swarthy, okay? It's not until those people came out of those Caucasus Mountains, okay, and they took Europe. Slowly over time, they took it and they drove, okay? They drove the dark-skinned people out, who were Jakes at this point in time in history, okay? So there's only one group of white people. But they use their craftiness, their deceit, their power, their control to deceive the whole world, to convince you that there's all these different types of white people. That, oh, I'm German, I'm Swedish, I'm Australian, I'm American, I'm Italian, I'm Greek. No, you're an Edomite. That's just what it is. Okay? The world has been deceived. All right? So let me keep reading this, and then we'll get back to the scripture. It says, I could wish their numbers were increased. He wants the numbers of the white people to be increased. Sound like Elon Musk. All right? And while we are, as I may call it, scoring our planet by clearing America of woods and so making this side of our globe reflect a brighter light to the eyes of the inhabitants in Mars or Venus, why should we, in the sight of superior beings, darken its people? Why increase the sons of Africa by planting them in America, where we have so far an opportunity, by excluding all blacks and tawnies, of increasing the lovely white and red? Did you catch that? Of increasing the lovely white and red. That's white supremacy. Okay? But when it says lovely white and red, you go to Genesis, it says the first came out red all over like a hairy garment. Their progenitor. Okay? They describe themselves as white. Okay? Trying to describe themselves as pure. Okay? But you know their skin isn't white. It's pale. It's translucent. You can see their blood through their skin. And so that's why they're biblically described as red. So here it is, the confession of the Edomite right here in history, documented in an infamous letter. Okay? There's only one group of these pale people. But perhaps I am partial to the complexion of my country, for such kind of partiality is natural to mankind. Okay? And it is. All right? Every nation favors their own people. Okay? Overall. So, we can determine from what we've read already that there's only one group of pale people on the planet, and they're the Edomites. Okay? Now, I do have to say this again. All right? Overall, it's not about skin color. Skin color would be an indicator, okay? Because, through the Spirit, we now understand that you are who you are through the seed of your father. But the first Edomite was pale skin. And the majority of the pale skins are Edomites, okay? But there are also dark-skinned Edomites because you are who your father is, okay? If an Edomite got with a dark-skinned woman, that child will come out tawny. And that child will be an Edomite because their father is an Edomite. And if that child continued to mate with dark-skinned people, they would stay dark. They would be chocolate-covered Edomites. Same thing with the Israelite. If he mated with only pale people and that child continued to mate with pale people, if it was a male, all their children would be Israelites, even though they would be pale appearing. Okay? So that's why the importance of judging through the Spirit. But you have to understand that majority of the pale people are Edomites, okay? Because that was their complexion, that curse that was put on them by Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Okay? So let's get some scriptures, and then we're going to close out. So this is Genesis 25 and verse 25. And it says, and the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. Okay? Came out red. Didn't we just read that in Benjamin Franklin's letter? So that's just one group of people. There was no other group in the Bible that was called red. Okay, and why was he red? Because his pigment was gone. Esau in the Hebrew would be Isashwa, wasted away. His pigment was wasted away. So he was red. And his descendants were red. And that's how Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai had it set up. Okay? So you got to understand that. It's very important for you to understand that, who this devil is. Okay? So they've deceived the whole world. But everything that's hidden must come to the light. And that's what's happening. And this word is going out. The prophets are still prophesying, so it's still time for you to get this word. Okay? So I hope this short lesson was edifying. Shalom, Yasharallah.